Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Charlotte Canion on today's show.
I'm your host, award-winning author, speaker, and actress Charlotte Canion. And today our guest is Essie Smith. Now, she has written stories for most of her life and has even won many awards, including a New York Times bestseller author. Susan, welcome to the show. And it's okay if I call you Susan, okay?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, you're welcome. Let me start out by, I know that our listeners love to know background and all, so tell us a little bit about your family and how you grew up and how you got into writing.
Well, I am the youngest of four kids. I've been married to my husband for 36 years now, and we have four wonderful kids and two grandkids and lots of furry baby fur babies, I guess you could call them, including a grand skunk.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of goes along with my life. There's always seems to be some kind of strange thing that happens, but it's kind of normal for our family.
Well,
I began writing. Actually, I began writing in 2012. I published my first four books in March of 2012. And that was after my husband told me I needed to get a hobby.
well, you kind of took that to the extreme. How many books all total do you have?
I've kind of lost count. If you're looking at just the English titles, I'm at right around 100 books. And if you look at all the translations, I'm at well over 200.
Oh my gosh. How many different languages are your books in?
Right now, I'm in German, French, Italian, Spanish, Chinese, and English. So six different languages if you count English.
That is wonderful. Okay, now what is your favorite genre? Or do you skip around, or do you have several?
I definitely have a favorite. That would have to be the science fiction part. It's just one of those things that kind of captures my heart. And, as we talk more, you'll find out why. But I do skip around a lot. I mean, I do have a lot of different genres that I've written in, including young adult, and I have the young adult coming of age, young adult dystopia. I have grounded sci-fi. I have a suspense thriller, and I have paranormal, urban fantasy, so contemporary fantasy. And like I said, my main love, though, has to be the sci-fi romance and the grounded sci-fi.
Was that your first book? Was about sci-fi and
Actually, no. My very, very, very first book was not. I decided that when your husband tells you you need to get a hobby and you're going through a difficult period in your life and you're listening to country music, it can lead to, really wonderful and strange things. So my first book was actually called Lily's Cowboys. So it was more of a modern day Western, and with the major twist to it. It had more of a paranormal flair to it, which that kind of reflects the movies and other things that we enjoy doing, watching. But my next three books were definitely science fiction. And I realized that, that's my, I guess you would call my superpower. That's where my special gift comes in, is being able to create these far off worlds.
And I think I read somewhere that you used to lay out on the ground and look at the stars and just start writing your stories in your head when you were a child. I also read that you believe that there's a heroine in all of us. How did you discover your first heroine?
I think it's just got to be part of the women that I've met, including my grandmothers and my mom. there's a strength in all of us. There has to be a balance. And, with the heroines, my mom, I swear, you could have dropped her and my grandmother in the middle of the woods. And by the time you found them, they would have had, a house built, a garden growing, that was completely furnished, the whole 9 yards, and be wondering, why are you bothering them? And that was kind of the way we grew up. My dad was really, really funny because I think he just kind of went along with my mom. It's like we never went to the, nice campgrounds where, they had all of the amenities. If we went there, mom would always say, okay, now we're going to pack everything out into the middle of the woods, and we would be off where nobody else was. So that was kind of different for a woman to really enjoy doing that. And I definitely take after her. And, she would tell me tales of how her and my dad's mom, my grandma Carmen, where they would be sitting up on the mountain. And, part of their thing was they were part of the lookouts. And during the end, towards the end of World War II, and they would sit on the mountains and see if there was any enemy along the coast, because they were over on the West Coast. So listening to those tales growing up, and knowing the kind of women that were in my family, we were definitely pioneer women.
So you have that adventuresome spirit and that pioneer spirit.
Well, we'll know for sure next year, because in August or March of next year, my husband and I are planning on trying to do a walkthrough of the Appalachian Trail.
Wow.
So that's 2,180 miles. So hopefully we'll be able to do it.
Now, how long does a trip like that take?
6 to 7 months of living out of a tent.
Okay. And he's retired, obviously. Or he lives off you and your books, right?
Well, he's semi-retired, and luckily he has a business, and our son and our nephew run it. And one of the things with me is I have a fantastic team put together. So I'm working really hard to get enough books are completed before I go, so that my team can release them as I'm gone.
Oh, that'll be
But
great.
I plan on doing a lot of writing, believe it or not, while I'm on the trail. It's like the perfect place to get new ideas.
Well, that's what I was figuring, that you will probably have a story tied to that, or maybe 3 books tied to it. I have to say, you're probably the author that's written the most books that I've interviewed in my 2 years of interviewing, authors. I've interviewed some, New York bestsellers, but I don't know that I know anyone that's written 100 books, and all. You were saying that you've used your imagination. Now, do you remember in school teachers telling you, you should be a writer?
It's really funny, is reading was very, very difficult for me growing up. It wasn't until I was in about 6th grade that I actually became I would say, a prolific reader. And it was just very, very difficult, for me to actually read. And it took that one book to finally spark my interest. And my dad was a very avid reader. And one of my fondest memories is him reading me stories. And it was the stories that he read that, made me love the power behind,
The written word. Mm-hmm.
Just this, I can remember vividly those stories and getting lost in them. And so I never really thought of myself as ever being able to be an author. I never thought anyone would want to read the worlds that I created, but I love to imagine them. It was my escape. And, when my husband, it was funny, it was when the economy tanked back in around 2010, was a definite change in my life. And that's when my husband, I was kind of like on this rebellion mode, and he was, I was reading books, but I was having a hard time finding characters and worlds and stories that I wanted to read. Literally, the heroines were too stupid to live, and I just wanted to smack them.
well, Susan, hold that thought, because we'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsors.
Marianne Fairmouth is a career consultant with 30 years experience in the national recruiting world, a multi-award-winning author in multi-genres, and a speaker that gives presentations to help you succeed. Her book, Revolutionary Recruiting, made the top 20 global list of recruiting books. Find her on Amazon, your favorite bookstore, or at fairmouth.com.
To embrace your children's imagination, check out Diane Floyd Bame's books for kids. There's The Moonling Adventures, all about the animals in the Serengeti. And then there's Harry the Camel, learning to love yourself just the way you are. Then The Little Girl in the Moon. There's one about friendship, another one about the big ideas, which is an inspirational story, and then Tour Tycho Town, right there in Tycho Crater on the moon. All of Diane Floyd Bame's books are available at B4R Store.
Hello, I am the author Denise Bryson. My first book is The Things That Cross My Mind, Inspirational Poetry with Life Lessons. And then my audio book is Love's Reality, and it is also inspirational poetry with a jazzy flair. And then my new book is The Sex, the Lies, and the Soul Ties. They're really short stories written from a poetic expression. And then I have my first children book series, the Blinky series, which the first book is called Meet the Coins, and it is both in English and Spanish. And then the new book From Coins to Bills. I am the author, Denise Bryson.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Charlotte Canion on today's show.
Welcome back to the show. Today we're talking to S.E. Smith, or I'm calling her Susan. Susan, you said you're working on a couple of books right now. Can you tell us a little bit about them? And I think you have some special techniques to bring the characters about. Can you tell us how you bring them to life on paper?
Well, one of the things that I do is I'm working on some of my core stories that I had actually released at the very beginning. I'm working on my Lords of Cassius series, which was my third book that I released. And so I've gotten back to the core sci-fi romance series, and the last book I just finished ended up being at almost 100,000 words. So that was a bit of a challenge. And this one, I just started it a few days ago, and I'm almost at 20,000 words. So for any authors out there, you know that you're in the groove when you're writing this quickly, and it feels good. But one of the things I do is I always say that if you're writing, you need to be writing interactively. Your characters you need to be feeling with your characters. If you're smiling when you're writing them, if you're crying, if you're getting angry, if you're getting anxious, if you're falling in love with them, then that's an interactive emotion that the readers are going to be feeling as well. And if you don't have that kind of interaction with your own characters, it's hard for the readers to have that. And you want them to feel like they're there. You want them to feel like they know these characters. They know these people. They're in the room with them.
Well, I've asked other authors this. Do you take characteristics? You already mentioned your mother and your grandmother. Do you take people you've met and characteristics from them, or have you even patterned a whole character after someone that intrigued you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, my and behind me, ambushing Ariel. I mean, her love for animals and the way she brought in the animals and the snakes and everything. Totally my son. Totally my son. I have another story that And the whole story revolves around my best friend. She's just this larger than life, beautiful, boisterous person that, you almost wonder there's no way that somebody could be like this. And she is. She just walks into a room and everything just comes alive. And, when you have people like that in your life, I think all of my heroes are based after my husband and my father, because to me, they were the men in my life that, that are there for you, that listen to you and cheer you on and, support you and, just all of those things that believe in you. And that's part of that balance, is finding that balance. Is and one of my books, I actually said, that they wash the dishes, and my dad and my husband wash the dishes. That can be a real true hero.
That is a true hero. My husband washes dishes too, so I definitely can equate to that. And he even makes the bed every morning. Just
Yep.
every morning. Every morning. Now, how do you balance life with and you've written so many different novels. How do you balance life as an author and as a mother and with your family life?
It can be challenging. It's funny because my husband has once told me, he kept coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And he finally stopped and he goes, I don't know how you get anything done. And I looked at him and I said, I don't either. But again, that's part of, the joys of being an author, being your own boss is, I work the hours that, I try to work around them. Today, my husband, I'm working on a story, and a friend of ours just turned 97 today. And my husband baked him a cake last night. And so we, my husband asked me, he says, do you have time? And I said, I always have time for something like this. And so we went down and we had cake and, wished him a happy birthday and spent some time with him. And that's the important things in life.
Yeah.
It's not about reaching that top. It's about the journey on the way there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Can you share with us a time in your life you seem like a very, very joyful person and that nothing has ever gone wrong? What part of the country do you live in, and have you ever had any drama in your life that influenced any of your books?
I live in South Florida. In 2004, 2005, we were blessed with Hurricane Francis. A week later, Tropical Storm Ivan. And a week after that, Hurricane Jean. And then a year after that, Hurricane Wilma. And I spent Hurricane Francis up in the attic bailing water, looking through our roof because all the shingles were gone, and trying to get as much water captured that wasn't going to destroy the house. And in the middle of the eye, as it passed overhead, we were up there in 50-mile-an-hour winds, nailing down tarps just to save the house. And, and then with generators and without power for 19 days, we end up putting our own roof on and finished it at 10 o'clock on Sunday night. And Monday is when Ivan hit and dumped 11 inches of rain.
Wow.
And then the following Saturday, Jean hit with a Category 3. And then a year later, when Wilma hit, my mother was actually thrown out of her trailer, broke her hip, and laid in the middle of the hurricane.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I've dealt with a little bit of trauma.
Well, and I think it's part of life. It's as writers, sometimes we can use those stories, within our characters. Yes, all of them, from hither to yonder. You just told us some of the set, but what are some of? Tell us one. We've got a couple of minutes left. Give me 2-minute snippet on, maybe one of the stories that would really be intriguing to, our audience to dive into your stories.
I would probably say Gracie's Touch is one of my favorite. And I think it's because I can relate the most to Gracie. Because Gracie doesn't have the most confidence in the world, but she fights. And even when she has a bad day, she lets herself have that bad day, but then she comes back fighting again and again. And so Gracie's Touch is one of my fan favorites.
Okay.
And I would recommend that one to the readers.
That would be the one you would pick for them to start with to get a feel of what kind of author you are.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, she's just got one of those spirits that you just fall in love with her because, you know, she can have a bad day and she'll let you know she's having a bad day, but she fights through it. And I think we all have those.
Yeah, I think we're all fighters, or we wouldn't do it. Do you think that everybody has a book inside of them? Now, I don't think everyone has 100 books or 300 plus, but do you think that everyone has a book inside of them?
I think everyone has a story. It's just inside of them whether or not they want to tell that story. And, you know, that's, or better yet, if they want to show that story. There's a difference between telling and showing. And when you show somebody the story that you have inside of you, you're putting yourself out there, and it can be pretty scary. But I think everyone has that ability. It's just, are you willing to overcome the fear to do it?
I totally agree with you. Yeah, that they do. Well, we're going to take another short commercial and we'll be right back with Susan Smith.
Publishing marketing package for authors. $1,500 value, save 40% now. Includes a 6-piece marketing kit of 250 bookmarks, 250 business cards, 250 postcards, 1 table banner, 1 table runner, and 50 download cards, plus book cover design, ebook creation, PDF setups, upload to Ingram Spark, scroll placement, video commercial, and interview on IBS, plus much more. Email bourgeoismedia@look.com for details or bourgeoismedia.com.
Hi, I'm Mel Greenberg, author of Running with Our Eyes Closed, book 1 in the Empty Nested series. To the world, Samantha has the perfect life. 3 wonderful children, a loving husband, so she thought, and a life split between Dallas and Italy. When her youngest leaves for college, it all comes crashing down, forcing Samantha to re-examine everything. Over 7 days in one of the most romantic countries in the world, Samantha faces the past she thought she'd overcome and begins to redefine her role as a woman, a wife, and a mother.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canion, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canion, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Charlotte Canion on today's show.
This is Charlotte Canion, and it's been my pleasure to speak with Susan Smith as she goes by her pen name, S.E. Smith, and she's got over 100 books, so we're not going to even name half of them. We're not going to name just a few of them. But Susan, can you tell us, I mean, you've named a couple of your books, but can you tell our listeners, you know, website, how they can get a hold of you? And I'm sure that you've done book signings and have spoke about your books. So can you tell us, you know, how they can reach you?
Any reader that would like to reach out to me can find me at SESmithFL.com. And I'm pretty much can be found anywhere. So if you look up S.E. Smith FL on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, any of those, you'll be able to find either me, or you can look for some of my books. And that's Abducting Abby or The Dragon Lords of Valdir, and the Alliance series.
And you did say you got 3 more coming out in maybe the next 12 months.
Oh, definitely. It was funny, I made a list. I've got 20 on my list. I've got 10 that I'm trying to get done before March. We'll see if that happens.
Good luck to you. Kind of to wrap this up, could you give advice to someone who really does want to write their story, really does want to write a book, even if it's a children's book? What should they do? How should they get started?
First thing is believe in yourself. Second of all, start writing. Just put yourself, if nothing else, close your eyes if you can type without looking. If you can't, don't look at the screen, look at the keyboard, but lose yourself in the story and just start writing. And then you'll be amazed when you look back up at the screen what you've produced. It'll be magic.
What if they don't know where to start? Do they write a personal story?
Start with a name. Start with a place. Start with a story that means something to them, that they remember. And start writing down one of your favorite memories and just let it go from there, and get lost in that memory and share it. And as you're sharing it, more and more will come out and more ideas will blossom. Most of my stories I hear, are from listening to the name of somebody or a song or, someplace that I've been. That's where my Project Gleesy series came from, was at a star party. My husband does astrophotography, and we were at a star party in Fort Davis, Texas. And I walked up, there's the telescopes, and I had the idea for a series right there.
Okay, that's what triggered your sci-fi. Well,
that was my grounded sci-fi.
Okay, that was your grounded sci-fi. Okay. Well, is there anything left that I haven't maybe covered? You've got about a minute and a half that you'd like to share about what you're working on or one of your most special projects.
One of my most special projects right now is I am watching an author just blossom. She writes cozy mysteries, and she was sharing her novella, and we got to talking, and right now she's rewriting it. And just watching her as she's, I just ask her questions, and as I'm asking her questions, you could see the light bulb coming on. And just the change in her writing from the last few days has just been like watching a swan, go from the ugly duckling to the swan, or watching a beautiful bud suddenly open up to this brilliant flower. And I think for me, that brings out both the mom and the teacher and the author. So seeing something like that in another person is like magic to me.
Oh, and I love that. And it's kind of interesting that you mentioned the flower. Susan, I want to thank you for being on the show. This has been a marvelous interview. And I'm your host, Charlotte Canion, and I want you to remember, a rose is like a book. You can't know its beauty until you look at it. And a book is like a rose. You won't know its full beauty until you open it. This is Charlotte Canion saying bye for now and have a safe day.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Indie Beacon Show, produced by Beyond Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International LLC. Copyright 2021. Voiceover by Beyond Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please email us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on the show, please complete the form found on our website at indiebeacon.com. You may also watch previous year's shows on the website. Music is Frolic of Words, created for Indie Beacon